I'm Dana Searles, and welcome to This Week in Iowa Politics on We Are Iowa Plus. This week, I'm diving into the race for Iowa's 2nd Congressional District, sitting down with a candidate for Polk County Supervisor, and reflecting on Lindsey Graham's legacy here in Iowa. But first, we start with two major events happening last weekend for two of Iowa's largest political parties. Last weekend, Iowa Democrats and Republicans held their own special events, highlighting their November candidates and visions for the state. On Friday was the Republicans' annual Lincoln Dinner, one of the largest fundraising events for the Iowa Republican Party. Governor Reynolds headlined that event. She spoke on Republican candidate for Governor Zach Lane's candidacy, saying she is excited for him and she is confident that he is going to win. Lane also spoke at the event, saying he will continue building off of what Reynolds has already done.
I am being put here for a time to take that mantle and to work to make Iowa the best place to raise a family, to start a business, to grow a farm, to build a community, to participate in your church, a better place than anywhere else in the United States of America.
Then another major event, Democratic candidates took to the stage for the Democrats' annual Liberty and Justice celebration. Former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg headlined that event. He said candidates like Josh Turek and Rob Sand have high chances of winning because Iowans are looking for a change.
The other thing I'd say is that they're deeply rooted in a sense of place and focused on what their neighbors care about, what people are going through, trying to manage the cost of living right now. Trying to believe in a better future with better health and education.
And before these events, Zach Lane gained a notable endorsement in the race. President Trump endorsed the Republican candidate, specifically citing Lane's policies, some of them being on the economy, energy, agriculture, the MAHA movement, protection of elections, and border security. Now, President Trump posting this on Truth Social, saying in part, quote, "Zach Lane has my complete and total endorsement to be the next governor of Iowa. He will never let you down." This comes after the president previously endorsed Republican Randy Feenstra shortly before the primary election. Now, continuing with our candidate coverage, this week we're looking at candidates on the ballot for Iowa's 2nd Congressional District and the past race results. Now, this district covers northeast Iowa. The seat is open with Republican Ashley Hinson now running for U.S. Senate. So on the ballot for the Democrats is State Representative Lindsey James, who is taking on Republican former State Representative Joe Mitchell. Joe Mitchell served as the regional director for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and later as chief of staff at the Federal Housing Finance Agency. Mitchell also served in the State House of Representatives. Mitchell served in the Iowa legislature for 2 terms from 2019 through 2021. Lindsey James is looking to flip that seat blue. James served as a chaplain and co-founded the Loras College Peace Institute before serving in the State House of Representatives. James has served in the State House since 2019. And while a lot of eyes are on the 1st and 3rd congressional districts, the 2nd district still has the potential to be decided by a thin margin. So let's take a look at past race results. In 2022, Ashley Hinson beat Liz Mathis, gaining 54.1% of the votes, and Mathis getting 45.9%. Then, in 2024, incumbent Republican Ashley Hinson defeated Democrat Sarah Corkery, gaining 57.1% of the votes, and Corkery getting 41.5%. This will be an interesting race to watch. We will, of course, track all of it for you. Well, also this week, Governor Reynolds' Medicaid Fraud Task Force held its first meeting. Earlier this year, the governor signed an executive order to form an 11-member task force to tackle the problem of Medicaid fraud. It's part of President Trump's effort at the national level to root out fraud and mismanagement. Now, it's been a problem all across the country. Specifically in Minnesota, 3 people were charged with stealing more than $22 million from the Medicaid system. Now, there is no official Medicaid fraud rate because fraud can be difficult to essentially quantify. However, nationally, the Medicaid payment error rate is 6.1%. Here in Iowa, that number is much lower. It's at 1.9%. Now, when asked if Iowa had a problem with fraud, Attorney General Brenna Bird said this.
Well, I believe, especially as a prosecutor, there is no acceptable amount of Medicaid fraud. When providers are committing that Medicaid fraud, it is taking money away from the taxpayers that was supposed to be used to help people that really need the Medicaid program and depend on it. So it's important that our Medicaid program has integrity, that we prevent fraud, and then when people commit fraud, when providers commit fraud, we need to be able to hold them accountable.
Now, the Fraud Task Force has 4 months to come up with a statewide strategy to do 4 different things. That is, strengthen federal partnerships, increase fraud awareness, invest in technology to monitor services that are at high risk for fraud, and improve ways that Iowans can report fraud. They have to hand in that report to the governor by October 29th. Also this week, the U.S. House passed a bill that would make daylight saving time permanent. Local 5's Brandon Wynn spoke with Iowans on what they would like to see happen with the bill.
For a little under 100 years, the U.S. has been trying to preserve this, daylight, but a new bill could change that.
The Sunshine Protection Act passed the U.S. House yesterday and could end the spring-forward fallback cycle Iowans are used to. Richard and Judy Ann shared how they feel that daylight saving time does more harm to farmers than helping.
We used to farm, and feeding livestock was something that the animals, they always want to be fed at the same time every day. I fed cattle for years.
The Daylight Saving Act of 1916 was originally implemented to give more times for farmers to harvest in a day, something the Anns feel is outdated.
And I think as older people that we would probably be well off having it just stay the same year round.
Less hassle. Easy, just to always know what time it is.
On the other hand, local teachers Janelle Mueller and Terry Olsom feel the most important thing for students' health is maximizing sunlight.
Keeping them awake and getting them to school on time is a challenge at the high school level.
Because for kids to come to school in the dark and be in the dark in the winter for the first hour and a half of class would be very challenging.
Mueller and Olsom are not the only ones concerned for people's health. Ryan Crane with the National Alliance of Mental Illness expressed concern with the current state of daylight saving.
When there's less daylight and that has an actual effect on folks' mental health, that seasonal affective disorder and related things are pretty well known and pretty well studied.
Local 5 reached out to Senator Grassley and Ernst to see if they plan on supporting the bill in the Senate. We did not hear back from them. Brandon Wynn, Local 5 News.
Well, coming up, John Forbes defeated incumbent Matt McCoy in the primary for the Polk County Board of Supervisors. Just ahead, I sit down with Forbes to talk about his reaction and how he is now preparing for this role. This week, I'm sitting down with John Forbes. He beat incumbent Matt McCoy in the primary election for Polk County Supervisor. Now, Forbes is running unopposed in November, meaning he is already hard at work connecting with the community. Here's what the past month has looked like for him and his vision for the county. Well, Democrat candidate for Polk County Supervisor John Forbes is joining me now. John, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's been about 1 month since the primary election. I kind of want to just talk about with you what that last month has been like, what your reactions have been like ever since the primary election day and getting that nomination for Polk County Supervisor.
Well, the day after the election, got a lot of calls from people congratulating me, and then about a day later, I started getting calls from different people and organizations that wanted to set up meetings to talk about their concerns with Polk County and ways we can work together to make Polk County a better place for people to live.
And I want to jump into a few of the meetings that you've had and a few of the issues that you hope to address when you get started. But first, I want to talk a little bit about what made you make the jump from, you previously served in the Iowa legislature.
Yes.
What made you want to make the jump from, the legislature to the Board of Supervisors?
Well, I served 12 years in the Iowa legislature, and prior to that, I did serve 7 years on the Urbandale City Council. So I've been in public service for close to 20 years. And I've been out of play for about a year and a half, and I felt as though I could still give back to the community. And so when I looked at this seat as a possibility to get back in, and both me and my wife decided that it was a good fit for me, so I decided to jump in the race, and I was victorious in beating an incumbent Democrat in this primary race.
Yeah, it was a big win, unseating the incumbent. What do you think you bring to the Board of Supervisors? What's the uniqueness trait that you have?
Well, my experience both from city council, local, and then from state, I think gives me the basis to be able to come into this job on day one and not have to really have a big learning curve. Although I'll learn a lot, I'm sure, when I'm in the job. But I've worked with budgets, I know how to work with people, and I think my experience in both local and state government will allow me to be able to advance Polk County forward.
And you've been saying you've been having meetings with various organizations. Tell me a little bit about those. What are you hearing from people? What are some places you're meeting with?
Well, I'm meeting with numerous people about issues within the county. One of them is homelessness and food insecurity. I was fortunate to go on a trip to Austin, Texas here about a month ago to view a homeless community where they're working to house people who are homeless. And so that's one of the things I want to work on as a Polk County super, making sure that people who are unhoused here in Polk County have an opportunity to be in a house situation where they can be much safer and get the wraparound services they need to get their lives back on track and be able to be self-sustainable on their own.
Okay, let's talk about a few of the issues. You talked about housing insecurity and homelessness, addressing that. Obviously, water quality is something that I think is a big driving factor that's really getting a lot of people out to the polls in this election. What's something that you want to bring to the table at the Board of Supervisors that would be something different that we haven't seen in terms of water quality discussion? Because obviously there's been lots of discussion over the past couple of years.
Well, as you know, water quality is a huge problem here in central Iowa, and especially Polk County. And when I was knocking on people's doors, that was probably the top two things they were concerned about. And so when I was in the legislature, I worked on a lot of legislation related to water quality. And so I understand the problem, and I want to be able to work to be able to help fix this problem within Polk County and central Iowa. And so I think we need to work on programs where we work with farmers and counties upstream, and that's where most of this nitrate infiltration into Polk County and the Des Moines Water Works is coming from. So we need to look at cover crops, continually increase or incentivize farmers to put in cover crops. And also we need buffer strips, areas between streams and rivers where the water can naturally move through that grassy area and remove the nitrates before the majority of them reach the rivers and streams. So I want to work with people upriver to be able to hopefully start solving this problem here in Polk County.
And does that look like maybe allocating more funds towards this issue? If so, where do those funds kind of come from?
Well, it's going to take money, and we can't expect farmers to do it all 100%. So my experience in the legislature, I want to work with legislators to be able to get the funding, to be able to work upstream, to make sure that farmers can have the tools to be able to reduce that nitrate load that comes into our rivers and streams. Right here in Des Moines now, we're putting a Band-Aid on the problem. We're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars each year to remove nitrates, and that's self-defeating, and I want to make sure that we can work with farmers upstream to solve the problem permanently so we don't have to spend that money down here in Des Moines removing nitrates from our water.
Let's also talk about addressing food insecurity, one of the issues on your campaign website that you really want to tackle on the Board of Supervisors. What does that look like for you, and just how do you kind of make a next step? Obviously, I think food insecurity is something a lot of people are constantly working to address.
Yeah.
What is something new you bring to the table to help address that?
Well, again, it's all about funding and being able to provide the funding to food insecurity sites here around Polk County and central Iowa. Right now, Polk County has two food pantries that they operate, one at River Place and one on the north side. And I want to work with those and work outside with DMARC and programs like that to be able to make sure that families aren't food insecure. Because, if you've got a family and you've got children, the worst thing is to have children and adults, not have enough food to be able to function in the day. And, with kids, if they go to school hungry, they're not going to be as productive and learning things in school. So it's important that we continue to look at and solve problems when it related to food insecurity here in Polk County.
Also, mental health. I think that's something else you've talked about a handful of times. How do you address mental health? How do you kind of even, begin to study it and address it?
Yeah, in the legislature, again, I worked on mental health services. The issue there was we would pass legislation many times, but not fund it properly. And so I want to make sure funding is adequate to provide the services that are needed. Here in Polk County, we have the Polk County Life Services Center, which opened a couple years ago, and it's for people who are experiencing a mental health crisis. And instead of sending them either to Broadlands Hospital for treatment or to the Polk County Jail, people can spend 23 hours in this facility, kind of cool down, and hopefully they can, get back on track. Sometimes these people need to go to the hospital, though, or in some major cases, I guess, we have to sometimes transport them to jail. But it's a way to be able to hopefully get people the services they need so they can, get back on track and have a productive life.
What are some things I'm not asking you about that you think it's important for Polk County residents to know about you, whether that be issues, you yourself, things you want to address, work you want to get done?
Well, as you know, I'm a pharmacist, and so healthcare has been really important to me, and I want to make sure that people get adequate health care here in Polk County. I'm seeing Polk County at Broadlawns Hospital, we're seeing a higher utilization of services there because of the uninsured or underinsured people here. And in the legislature, I work with Free Clinics of Iowa, which is a program where people can access free health care. And these are people most likely that don't have any insurance. And they're clinics that are open usually in the evening. They open anywhere from 5 to 6 o'clock, and we're open 2 to 3 hours. And they're staffed by volunteers here in Polk County. And they're physicians, nurses, physician's assistants, pharmacists that dedicate their time to be able to provide these services at no charge. So I want to look at ways to be able to allow people better access to healthcare services, and especially people who have no insurance, have no way of getting that. Because what happens a lot of times when people get sick, they use emergency rooms to be able to utilize healthcare, and that's clogging up emergency rooms across the whole Polk County metro area. And I've talked with people who say, they spent 12 hours in an emergency room just for a minor thing, but nothing major. But people shouldn't have to wait that long, and a lot of the reason is because the uninsured are using those as their primary health care.
And going into November, you're running unopposed for this seat, and you're running, to join a board of supervisors that has, over the past year or so, faced a few, lawsuits, a bit of turmoil, a lot of change. What does stability look like to you, bringing to this board of supervisors?
Well, what I really ran on is bringing trust and civility back to Polk County. We've had problems over the past 3 or 4 years, and I want to make sure that Polk County residents are confident in myself and the rest of the board members that are coming on. It's going to be pretty much a brand new board. Over the past years, all 5 of us will be new members. So it's a lot of new faces, a lot of new ideas. There's going to be some give and take between members. I mean, we're getting right now to kind of know each other. And I've had conversations with one of the Republican members on the board, and I think I can work with him very well. And I'm hopeful that the 5 of us can coalesce together to be able to work to make Polk County a better place for our residents here.
Awesome. Anything else that you want to add before we wrap up this interview?
Well, I'm just really excited to get started on the job in January 2nd, I believe it is. Right now, I don't have an opponent, and which I still could get one. It's possible. I think the Republicans have until I think around towards the end of August to nominate somebody. But I'm committed to working hard for Polk County and want to make sure that we can do the best job to bring the best services to our residents here.
Awesome. Well, John, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
It was a heavy week in Washington and all across the country with the sudden passing of South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. Coming up, the impact he left on Iowans who worked closely with him. South Carolina's governor announced Senator Lindsey Graham's sister will fill his seat. Senator Graham died suddenly last weekend. Now, the preliminary diagnosis is a rupture in his aorta because of a hardening of his arteries. Darlene Graham Nordone will now finish her brother's term in the Senate, which ends on January 3rd. Candidates who want to enter the race to fill Senator Graham's seat will have to file for a special election. The special primary is August 11th. The winner will replace him on the ballot in November. Now, the late senator was no stranger to Iowa. He made several stops in the state when he was running for president in 2016. Local 5's Alex Fulton spoke with one of the Iowans who worked with him at the time.
As a sitting senator, Lindsey Graham ran for president in 2016.
He really had the full Iowa experience.
Tracy Gibler was his Iowa state director.
I liked how he didn't take himself too seriously while taking issues very seriously.
She was in charge of setting up his events and taking him to them.
I got to take him to my hometown of Ottumwa, We also went to many places, Mason City, Dubuque. We took him to the Field of Dreams, and he played catch with one of our field staffers' younger siblings.
Together, they visited all 4 congressional districts.
He very much liked having conversations with people, learning about them, and hearing what was facing them as far as the troubles and how he could help problem solve those.
During some stops, Graham was with his colleague, Senator Chuck Grassley.
He was a fan of the good people of my state of Iowa, identifying with our shared values of hard work, of faith, and genuine care for one another.
Graham even got to go to the 2015 Iowa State Fair.
He would give me some ribbing, and that I planned a full day for him at the Iowa State Fair. And I think he thought, what are we going to do for a full day at a state fair?
It wasn't enough to win the presidential nomination, but the senator's time in Iowa stuck with his staffer.
I think that he, sorry, I'm a little emotional. Lindsey died doing what he loved. He loved America. He loved advocating for America.
Another busy week in Iowa politics, so let's look ahead to what we are tracking next week. I'll dive into Iowa's 4th Congressional District candidates and look back on past race results. And as always, I'll continue tracking your top political headlines. We'll have that and much more next week on This Week in Iowa Politics. Thank you all for watching on We Are Iowa Plus. I'm Dana Searles. Have a great day.